When I saw the silver Porsche parked in front of Mitchell and Sons Manufacturing, I knew my worst nightmares had come true. 3 years. 3 years since my brother Derek vanished with $470,000 and left our family business bleeding out. 3 years since I had to choose between letting the company my grandfather founded in 1952 collapse or sacrificing every cent I had to save it. He stepped out of the car wearing a suit that probably cost more than our employees' monthly salaries, expensive sunglasses hiding eyes that had always lied better than mine. Derek was always the favorite, the golden boy who went to Harvard while I stayed home learning the furniture business the old-fashioned way, hands stained with varnish, sawdust in my hair. I watched from my office window as he stopped to admire the new sign I installed last year, Mitchell and Sons, 3 generations of craftsmanship excellence. He smiled, that confident smile that always fooled our parents, the one that convinced them for 28 years that Derek was the brilliant son, the one who mattered. Meanwhile I, Daniel, was just the workhorse, the guy not smart enough for college but strong enough to carry the family legacy. He walked into the building like he owned the place. Technically, he did, 30% of it, at least. Because our father, in all his wisdom, had split the ownership equally between us when I turned 25, even though Derek had never spent a single day working on the factory floor. My phone rang. Patricia, my secretary. Daniel, your brother is here. He says he wants to talk about resuming his role in the company. Resuming. As if he had ever assumed anything other than the money. Send him up, I said, my voice far calmer than my heartbeat. Because Derek hadn't just come back. He had come back to claim something he didn't build, didn't save, and didn't deserve. And this time, I wasn't going to let him destroy it again. Derek walked into my office like he never left. Same arrogant smile, same cocky posture, same aura of someone who had never faced real consequences in his life. He extended his hand as if we were old friends reunited after a long vacation, not brothers separated by theft and betrayal. Danny. Man, you look great. And the factory too. I walked through the production floor, it's unrecognizable. I didn't shake his hand. Left it hanging between us until he lowered it, that smile faltering just a little. What do you want, Derek? Straight to the point. I always admired that about you. He sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. Look, I know I left abruptly. Abruptly. I let out a dry laugh. Is that what we're calling stealing nearly $500,000 and disappearing in the middle of the night? I didn't steal it. I took what was legally mine. You drained the operating account. The account we needed for payroll, vendors, everything. You left 23 employees without paychecks and nearly forced us into bankruptcy. Technically, as a 30% owner, I had a right. A right? My voice rose despite my effort to stay calm. You had a right to your share of the profits, not the entire working capital. You knew exactly what you were doing, Derek. You drained the company because you were pissed Dad made me CFO instead of you. He leaned back, crossing his legs in that casual pose that always pissed me off. As if nothing truly mattered, as if everything was a game. I was frustrated, I admit it. I worked hard at Harvard, got my MBA, came back ready to take over operations. And what happened? Dad gave me a fancy title with no real power while you, who barely finished community college, were given full control. I barely finished because I was here, Derek. Working 60 hours a week keeping this company alive while you were in Boston drinking in Harvard bars. And Dad gave you VP of Business Development. You had real authority, real responsibilities. You just never showed up to do the job. That wasn't real work. It was pretending to be important while you and Dad made all the actual decisions. Because you didn't know the business. How could you? You were gone for 4 years, then 2 more for your MBA. Meanwhile, I was here learning every part of the operation. Of course Dad trusted me more, I was present. Derek stood and walked to the window, looking down at the factory floor. His jaw tightened, that familiar tic that always appeared when he wasn't getting his way. You know what your problem is, Danny? You never saw me as your equal. You were always the older brother, the responsible one, the one who stayed behind to take care of the family business like a good boy. And I was sent away to succeed, to bring new ideas and energy. But when I came back, you had already convinced Dad I was useless. I didn't have to convince him of anything. You did that on your own by skipping meetings, ignoring reports, spending company money on business trips that were just vacations. One trip to Chicago to see a potential client. You stayed at the Ritz-Carlton for a week, and the client said he had never heard of you. Patricia checked. The silence that followed was heavy. Derek always knew when he was cornered, when his lies were exposed. But unlike when we were kids, when he'd lower his head and accept defeat, now he simply changed tactics. Okay, I made mistakes. But that was 3 years ago, Danny. I've changed. I've grown. And now I want to come back and help grow this company. Grow? We grew. 42% in the last 2 years. We hired 17 new employees. We landed contracts with 3 major hotel chains. We did all of that without you. Exactly. So imagine what we could do together. I have connections now, Danny. People I met in New York, California. People who can take us to the next level. And where were you for those 3 years? Building these connections? He hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. I worked with a few startups. Consulting. Learned a lot about modern operations, digital marketing, e-commerce. Startups financed with our $470,000. That money was legally mine. You keep saying that. But you know what else is legal? Charging you with embezzlement. Breach of fiduciary duty. A dozen other things our lawyer was ready to file before Dad stopped me. For the first time, he showed real emotion. Fear flickered in his eyes. Dad wouldn't let you sue me. Dad wouldn't. I wanted to. But Mom begged me not to. Said she'd already lost one son when you left, she couldn't lose another to a courtroom. So I swallowed my anger and used every cent I had, every favor, every drop of sweat to save this place. And I'm grateful. Don't insult me by pretending gratitude. You don't care about this company, Derek. You never did. To you it was a paycheck, a title to impress women in bars, a resume line. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? While you were off doing God knows what, I was here. Renegotiating loans. Cutting my own salary. Working double shifts because we couldn't afford overtime. Telling employees who'd been here 20 years that bonuses had to be delayed because we had no money. All because you decided your hurt ego was worth more than the 23 families depending on this business. Derek didn't say anything for a long moment. Just stood there, staring out the window, shoulders tense. I made a mistake, he finally said, quieter. A terrible one. But Danny, I'm your brother. That has to count for something. It did. It's the only reason you're not in prison. So what now? You're just going to shut me out forever? Pretend I don't exist? No. You still own 30% of this company. You'll get your share of profits, like you always have. But you have no operational role. You make no decisions. You don't represent Mitchell and Sons. You're a silent investor. Nothing more. Absolutely not. He turned, anger flashing again. I'm not sitting on the sidelines while you run our family business like it's yours. Then sue me. Try to force me out. But Derek? This time, Dad isn't going to save you. And Mom won't either. Because they saw what happened. They saw this company almost die because of you. And they saw me bring it back. You think they'll choose you over me? I think they'll choose the business over either of us. As they always should have. Derek walked to the door, then stopped. I've been gone for 3 years, Danny. Don't you think it's strange I came back now? Something in his voice made my skin prickle. What do you mean? I mean, maybe I know things. About the company. About you. Things Mom and Dad might find very interesting. What kind of things? We'll talk again. But next time, on my terms. He smiled, that manipulative smile I knew too well. Oh, and you should call Mom. I already talked to her this morning. Told her I'm back and want to reconnect with the family. She cried with happiness. She's planning a welcome home dinner tomorrow night. You'll be there, right? He left before I could answer, closing the door softly behind him. I sank into my chair, my mind racing. Derek was up to something, obvious. But what? My phone buzzed. Mom. Daniel. Did you hear? Derek is back. Oh, my baby came home. Mom always called Derek my baby, even though he was only 2 years younger than me. 2 years that, in her mind, made all the difference between the responsible son and the one who needed protection. I heard, Mom. He was here. And? Did you two talk? Work things out? Not exactly. Daniel, he's your brother. You need to forgive. Forgive? Mom, he nearly destroyed Grandpa's company. He stole money that wasn't his. He didn't steal. He took his share. And Daniel, he was hurting. Your father was so hard on him. Dad was fair. Derek didn't do the work. Because you didn't give him space. It was always about you, Daniel. You, the perfect son who never did anything wrong. Have you ever stopped to think how that made Derek feel? It was always like this. No matter what Derek did, Mom found a way to make it my fault, or Dad's, or anyone's. Never Derek's. Mom, I'm not having this conversation again. Then at least come to the dinner tomorrow. Please, Daniel. As a family. I'll think about it. You'll come. Because despite everything, we're still a family. And families forgive. After she hung up, I sat in the silence of my office. Outside, the factory hummed with activity. Machines cutting wood, craftsmen shaping pieces, forklifts moving finished products. The sound of success I rebuilt from the ruins Derek left behind. And now he was back, wanting credit, wanting a role he hadn't earned. Worse, he was hinting he had something on me, some leverage. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and took out the folder I kept there for 3 years. Inside was every piece of evidence I'd compiled of Derek's wrongdoing. Bank statements. Emails. Fake expense reports. Everything I'd need to press criminal charges. I'd never used it because Mom begged, because Dad said the publicity would damage the company. But maybe it was time Derek learned I wasn't the indulgent older brother who always covered for him. My phone vibrated again. A text from an unknown number. You thought you could keep me out forever? This company is half mine by right. And I'm going to prove you're not the saint everyone thinks. See you at dinner, brother. Derek. He'd gotten my personal number, probably from Mom. I looked out the window at the parking lot. The silver Porsche was still there, shining in the Indiana sun like an insult. Bought, no doubt, with money he stole from this company. And then it hit me. Derek didn't come back because he missed us. Didn't come back to make amends. He came back because he was out of money, and needed more. The question was, how far would he go to get it? Dinner at my parents' house was supposed to be at 7. I arrived at 7:15 on purpose, not wanting to give Derek the satisfaction of seeing me waiting eagerly for his grand entrance. The Porsche was already parked in the driveway, of course, right next to Dad's old pickup and Mom's modest sedan. We grew up in this house, a two-story colonial in a quiet neighborhood in Fort Wayne. Dad bought it with the first big profit from the factory in 1985, 2 years before I was born. Every piece of wood, every item of furniture had come from Mitchell and Sons. The dining room where we were about to eat had been built by Grandpa himself, a 30th anniversary gift for my parents. Mom met me at the door, pulling me into a tight hug. She was 63 now, her hair more gray than brown, but her eyes still held that determined spark they'd always had. "Daniel, you're late. Traffic. You live 15 minutes away." She lowered her voice. "Please behave today. For me. Derek is really trying to make amends." "Sure he is." I walked into the dining room to find Derek already seated, wearing an expensive casual shirt that probably cost more than my Sunday suit. He was showing something on his phone to Dad, both of them laughing at whatever it was. Dad looked up when I entered. Robert Mitchell was 67 now, his hair completely white, but he still had the broad shoulders and calloused hands of someone who'd spent his life working with wood. He gave me a nod, but not the warm smile he had given Derek. "Daniel. You should know, Derek here was telling me about an investment opportunity. Sounds promising." "I'm sure," I replied, sitting on the opposite side of the table. "Don't be like that," Derek said, that easy smile on his face. "I'm just sharing some ideas. I've learned a lot about modern business over the last few years." "I'm sure. And where exactly were you for those 3 years?" Derek was in Denver, Mom cut in quickly, bringing a platter of roasted turkey. "He was working for a tech company." "Doing very well, weren't you, dear?" "Well enough," Derek answered vaguely. "Name of the company?" I pressed. "A few different things. Mostly consulting. Helping startups scale." "Consulting. With your Harvard MBA, I suppose." "Exactly. And these startups, were they successful?" Derek's jaw tightened slightly. "Some were, some weren't. That's the nature of the startup world. High risk, high reward. And now you're back because..." "Because he missed home," Mom answered for him. "He missed the family." "Right, Derek?" "Right. And because I realized my place is here, helping grow the family business." Dad was quiet, cutting his turkey methodically. He'd always been a man of few words, preferring to observe and listen before forming opinions. But I could see something working behind his eyes. "Derek," Dad finally said, "you called me today. Said you wanted to discuss coming back to the company in a leadership capacity." "Yes. I know I left on bad terms." "You stole nearly $500,000, I said plainly." "Daniel." Mom slapped her hand on the table. "That's harsh language." Derek took what was legally his. From the operational working capital. Knowing it would leave the company unable to function. "I was frustrated," Derek said calmly. "I'd worked hard, educated myself, came back ready to contribute, and was essentially pushed aside." "Yes," I reacted badly. "But Dad, Mom, I've changed. I've grown up. And now I want to make things right." "Making things right would mean returning the money," I said. "The money's gone. Invested in several ventures that didn't pan out. But I can bring something more valuable: experience, connections, vision for the future. We already have vision. And it's working." The company grew 42% in 2 years. 42% is impressive, Derek acknowledged. But with proper strategy, we could triple that. "Daniel, you're great at operations. Always have been. But operations alone don't build empires. You need business vision, strategic thinking." "Are you saying I don't have business vision?" I'm saying you have different strengths than I do. Together, we could really make this company take off. Dad set down his fork and knife. Derek, let me ask you something. Why now? Why not a year ago, or two? Derek hesitated, just a fraction, but everyone noticed. Because I needed that time to gain experience, to understand what I really want out of life. And what I want is to be here, building something lasting with my family. Or because your money ran out, I said. Because your startups failed and you need another paycheck. That's not fair, Mom protested. Isn't it? So Derek, how much money do you have left? Compared to the $470,000 you took. My finances are none of your business. They are when you want back into a company you nearly destroyed. When you want us to trust you again. So I'll ask again, how much is left? Silence filled the table. Mom looked uncomfortable. Dad was studying Derek with that intense expression he used when evaluating wood, searching for flaws and weaknesses. Not much, Derek finally admitted. I made some bad bets. Trusted the wrong people. But it taught me valuable lessons, about risk management, due diligence. It taught you you're terrible with money, I cut in. That in 3 years you burned through almost $500,000. Daniel, enough, Dad said, his voice carrying that quiet authority that always made us both straighten up. Derek, I appreciate the honesty. But your brother has a point. You took a substantial amount of money and lost it all. That doesn't inspire confidence. I know, Dad. And I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm asking for a chance. Let me start small. Let me prove myself. Start small how? I asked. Do you want to be paid? Not initially. I just want a role. Maybe business development again, but this time I'll really commit. I'll show I've changed. And your ownership stake? Dad asked. You still own 30%. I'm keeping it. That was part of the original succession plan. You and Mom own 40, Daniel owns 30, I own 30. That doesn't change. It should, I said. You abandoned the company. You should lose your stake. That's not your decision, Derek replied, an edge in his voice. Dad, Mom, you gave me that stake. Legally it's mine. Legally it's his, Dad confirmed. Daniel, as much as I understand your frustration, the ownership structure was established. Unless Derek sells voluntarily. I'm not selling, Derek said quickly. This is my inheritance too. Grandpa built this company for both of his grandsons. Grandpa built it for whoever would carry on his work, I said. Who would honor the craft? You don't even know the difference between oak and maple, Derek. I can learn. You had 28 years to learn. You never wanted to. Boys, Mom said, her voice cracking. Please stop. I can't stand seeing you two fight. This is why Derek left in the first place, all this tension, all this competition. He left because he stole money and knew he'd have to face consequences, I said. I left because I was being pushed out. Derek shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Because no matter what I did, it was never good enough. Daniel was the perfect one, Daniel was the one Dad really wanted, Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. Do you know what it's like being second best in your own family? You were never second best, Dad said quietly. You were different. And for a time, I thought your differences could be strengths. Your charm, your ease with people, your education. But Derek, you never wanted to work. You wanted the title, the money, the respect, without putting in the effort. That's not true. It is. And you know it. How many meetings did you miss? How many reports did you deliver late or not at all? How many times did Patricia have to cover for you because you were working remotely but actually playing golf? Derek flushed. Patricia has no authority to. Patricia has been with me for 15 years, Dad cut in. She saw everything. She documented everything. And when you took that money, she gave me every piece of evidence of what you were doing. Your fake expenses, your business trips that were vacations. All of it. Derek's face drained of color. You knew? Of course I knew. But you were my son. I thought I could straighten you out, make you understand responsibility. Instead, you stole from me and ran. I didn't steal. You stole. From me, from your mother, from your brother, from every employee in this company. And the only reason I didn't press charges was because your mother begged me not to. Mom was silently crying now, tissues pressed to her eyes. This was exactly what I'd wanted to avoid, why I'd hesitated coming tonight. Because no matter what Derek did, no matter how clearly he was in the wrong, Mom would always defend him. And Dad, despite his firmness, couldn't stand seeing her unhappy. So what now? Derek asked, his voice smaller. You're just going to shut me out forever? I'm your son. I'm your brother. That has to mean something. It means something, Dad said. It means I didn't press charges. It means you still own your share. But Derek, trust is earned. And you destroyed it. You want back in? You have to show me you've changed. Not with words, with actions. How? You tell me. How do you prove you're not the boy who ran when things got hard? Derek went quiet for a long moment. I could see his mind working, calculating angles, looking for leverage. He'd always done that, even as a kid. Finding the argument, the manipulation, that would get him what he wanted. What if I can prove Daniel isn't the saint everyone thinks he is? Derek said suddenly. What if I can show he has his own secrets? My heart stopped. What are you talking about? I'm talking about things I've discovered. Things about how you saved the company. Things Dad and Mom would find very interesting. Derek, if you're making up lies, Dad began. They're not lies. Daniel, you want to tell them about the loan from Robert Anderson? Or the contract with Prestige Hotels you secured through, let's call it questionable means? My mouth went dry. How the hell did he know about that? I don't know what you're talking about. You don't? Robert Anderson, our competitor. Who just happened to offer you $200,000 when you were desperate after I left. And the terms of that loan, Daniel? They included you agreeing not to compete for certain contracts, didn't they? You're delusional. And Prestige Hotels. The big contract you closed last year, the one everyone celebrated. You want to tell Dad how you actually got that contract? About your arrangement with Tom Briggs, the purchasing manager? Dad was looking at me now, confusion and suspicion crossing his face. Daniel? It's not what he's implying. Then what is it? Dad pressed. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you made some questionable deals while you were saving the company. Deals I wouldn't approve of. I did what I had to do. Just like I did, Derek said, leaning back. So maybe we're not so different, brother. Maybe we both cut corners when it suits us. The difference is, you just didn't get caught. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom looked between us, fear and confusion in her eyes. Dad stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between disappointment and restrained fury. Daniel, he said, dangerously calm, did you borrow money from Robert Anderson? Robert Anderson owned Anderson Fine Furniture, our biggest competitor in Indiana. He'd tried to buy Mitchell & Sons 3 times in 10 years, and Dad had refused every time. The idea of doing business with him, let alone borrowing money, would be seen as betrayal in Dad's mind. I took a loan, yes. When Derek left, we needed immediate capital. Every bank had rejected us because our financial statements looked catastrophic after he withdrew the working capital. Anderson was the only one who could give me the money in less than 48 hours. Dad's face hardened. You should have told me. You were in the hospital with a heart scare. I shot back. Mom was overwhelmed, the employees were terrified, and the company was 2 weeks away from not making payroll. I made a decision to keep us alive. And the strings attached? Dad asked. Non-compete agreements with our biggest rival? It wasn't a non-compete. It was a temporary supply agreement. Anderson wanted rights to manufacture small-volume decorative pieces using our designs. Just for 12 months. Dad slammed his hand on the table so hard the plates rattled. That's worse, Daniel. You gave away proprietary designs to Robert Anderson. Designs your grandfather created. Designs that built this company. I limited what he could use. And I made sure it wouldn't threaten our main product line. You should have asked me, Dad repeated, his voice trembling, not with anger, but with betrayal. I was trying to save the company, I said quietly. By selling pieces of its soul? Derek chimed in with a smug smile. Interesting strategy. I ignored him. This was between me and Dad. Dad. I did what I thought you would have done. No, he said, shaking his head. You did what you thought was necessary in the moment. And maybe I would have understood that. If you'd been honest. Mom finally spoke, voice small and broken. You should have told us, Daniel. We trusted you. Her words stung more than Dad's anger. And what about the hotel contract? Dad continued. What did Derek mean by an arrangement with Tom Briggs? I took a deep breath. This part was harder. There was no arrangement. Not like Derek is implying. Tom and I had a friendship. A close one. He helped push the deal forward, yes. But I didn't bribe anyone. I didn't manipulate anyone. I didn't cheat. But you used a personal relationship for business gain, Dad said. That is a conflict of interest, whether you intended it or not. It wasn't like that. Then what was it, Daniel? Mom asked softly. Were you dating him? I hesitated. And that hesitation was enough. Mom covered her mouth with her hand. Dad leaned back in his chair, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Derek, of course, smiled like a cat who'd finally cornered the mouse. So, he said, tapping his fingers on the table, now that the truth is coming out, maybe we can stop pretending Daniel is some flawless hero. You shut up, I snapped. You don't get to judge anyone here. Why not? Derek shrugged. Because I left? Because I made mistakes? Looks like you've made a few of your own, little brother. Dad closed his eyes for a long moment, then spoke in a low voice. I'm disappointed in both of you. The words hit like a punch to the chest. I have 2 sons, he continued. One who ran from responsibility, and one who hid things from me thinking he knew better. And now you both sit here throwing dirt at each other, each trying to prove the other is worse. Silence choked the room. Finally, Dad stood. This dinner is over. Dad. Not another word, he said, raising a hand. I need time. I need to think. About the company. About the future. About both of you. He walked away, shoulders heavy, Mom following him with tears in her eyes. Leaving only me and Derek at the table. Derek leaned back, folded his arms, and smirked. Well, he said, I guess we're even now. I stared at him, feeling something inside me shift, something cold, sharp, and resolute. We are not even, I said. Not even close. Sarah was waiting for me in the apartment we shared in downtown Fort Wayne. She was on the couch, still wearing her hospital scrubs from her night shift as a nurse. Her eyes were red, it was obvious she had been crying. "Your mother called," she said the moment I walked in. "She was hysterical, talking about you and Derek fighting, about your father having another heart episode, about the family falling apart." "Daniel, what is going on?" I sat beside her, suddenly exhausted down to my bones. "Derek came back." "I know. Your mother mentioned it. But she made it sound like a good thing, like the family was finally going to heal." "Derek didn't come back to heal anything. He came back because he's out of money and needs more." I told her everything. About the confrontation at the office, the accusations at dinner, Derek's ultimatum. But when I reached the part about Jennifer Dalton, I hesitated. "And?" Sarah pressed. "Your mother mentioned something about you lying to your father, making questionable deals." She was too upset to make sense. I had no choice. If Derek was going to expose everything, Sarah deserved to hear it from me first. When Derek left and took the money, I was desperate. No bank would give us a loan. So Robert Anderson, our competitor, offered to lend me $200,000. "The guy your father hates?" "The same." I accepted because I didn't see another choice. The terms included temporarily agreeing not to compete in certain areas. Sarah frowned. "That sounds bad." It was bad. But I paid it all back in 18 months. And once it was paid, the restriction ended. "Okay. And your father is upset about that?" "Furious. Because I never told him. I did it behind his back." "Why?" "Because he was having heart problems. The doctor said stress could kill him. I thought I was protecting him." Sarah took my hand. "Daniel, you always try to carry everything alone. You should have trusted your father, trusted me, trusted someone." "I know. And there's more." I took a deep breath. To secure the Prestige Hotel's contract, I gave their purchasing manager a personal loan of $45,000. He needed it for his daughter's surgery. 2 weeks later, he gave us the contract. That sounds like bribery." It wasn't. It was genuine. He needed help, I offered. The contract was separate. But you knew he was the one making the decision. You have to see how that looks. I do. Derek certainly sees it. He hired a private investigator who dug up everything. Sarah let go of my hand, pulling away slightly. "Is there anything else? Now would be the time to tell me." It felt like a knife to the chest. She was looking at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, something worse. Disappointment. "Jennifer Dalton." "College Jennifer? Your ex?" "She's not my ex. We went out a few times, nothing serious. But yes, that Jennifer. She's married now, to Martin Dalton, CEO of Quantum Industries. Our biggest client." "Yes. I used our old friendship to get an introduction. We had lunch a few times while I was pursuing his business." "You had lunch? You and your not ex?" "Multiple times. Without telling me." "There was nothing to tell. They were business meetings." "Then why didn't you tell me about them?" I had no answer for that. Because even though I hadn't crossed any lines, I knew how it looked. Jennifer had made it clear she still felt something, and I had used that ambiguity to my advantage. Because I knew how you'd react. Like I'm reacting now. Betrayed? Wondering whether I can trust the man I'm supposed to marry in 6 months. "Sarah, I never cheated on you." "Never. But you lied by omission. About this, about Anderson's loan, about Tom Briggs. How many other things haven't you told me, Daniel? How many other times did you decide I didn't need to know the truth? I was trying to protect you. Don't protect me. Her voice rose, tears running down her face. Respect me. Respect me enough to be honest, even when it's hard, even when you think it might hurt me. Because you know what hurts more? Finding out from your hysterical mother on the phone that my fiancé has secrets his whole family is fighting over. She stood up, grabbing her keys. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. I need space to think. Sarah, please. I love you, Daniel. But right now, I'm not sure I know you. And that scares me. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Somehow, that was worse than if she had slammed it. I sat in the silence of our empty apartment, my world collapsing piece by piece. My phone buzzed. Another message from the anonymous number. You need to know who Derek's partner is. Meet me. Tomorrow, noon, at Riverside Park. Bench near the bridge. Come alone. Part of me wanted to ignore it. I didn't know who this person was or what their motives were. But they had been right about everything so far. If Derek really had a partner, I needed to know who it was. I replied, I'll be there. I spent the night awake, mind spinning through possibilities. Who could Derek's partner be? Robert Anderson made sense, he had always wanted our company. Or maybe one of our investors, someone who wanted me gone. Or it could be nothing, just another one of Derek's games. At 7 in the morning, I drove to the office. Patricia was at the reception desk, her face lighting up when she saw me, then falling when she noticed my expression. Daniel? Are you okay? You look terrible. I know. I handed her an envelope. Patricia, if anything happens to me, if Derek somehow forces me out, I want you to take this straight to our lawyer. Understood? What's going on? Hopefully nothing. But if Derek gets what he wants, he'll try to push me out. This envelope contains every piece of evidence I've compiled of his misconduct. Use it. Patricia took the envelope, deep worry in her eyes. He's coming back, isn't he? He's trying. And he's using blackmail to do it. What kind of blackmail? I told her. Patricia had been with me from the beginning, she deserved to know. So he's threatening to expose decisions you made to save the company, she said when I finished. Decisions that, while questionable, were made out of necessity. The business world doesn't care about necessity. Only appearances. And your father? What did he say? That he's disappointed in me. That he doesn't know what to do. Patricia shook her head. Your father is upset right now, but he'll come around. He's always known you have integrity, Daniel. A few bad choices made in desperation don't change that. I hope you're right. I spent the morning trying to work, but it was impossible to focus. Every email, every call felt trivial compared to the crisis unfolding. At noon, I walked out through the back parking lot and drove to Riverside Park. The park was nearly empty on a Thursday morning. A few joggers, a mother with a stroller. And sitting on the bench near the bridge, a woman in her mid-20s with blonde hair in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a light jacket. She stood when I approached. Daniel Mitchell? Yes. And you are? My name is Rebecca Torres. I worked as Derek's executive assistant for the past 6 months. Where? Denver. He was running a consulting startup. Or at least that's what he told investors. Was it a lie? Rebecca looked around nervously, then gestured for me to sit. Everything about Derek was a lie. The consulting firm was basically a front. He had a few clients, did some legitimate work, but mostly he used it as cover. Cover for what? To plan his takeover of Mitchell and Sons. He talked about it constantly. How he'd been wronged, how you stole his place, how your parents favored you. It was an obsession. And you worked for him knowing this? I didn't know at first. I thought he was a legitimate business consultant. Good boss, decent pay. But then I started noticing things. Strange meetings with a guy who always paid in cash. Phone calls where Derek talked about when I take over and when I get my brother out of the way. What guy? Who was he? That's where it gets interesting. Rebecca pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A man in his mid-50s with graying hair and an expensive suit. I recognized him immediately. Robert Anderson. You know him? He's our biggest competitor. And the one who loaned me money when Derek left. Rebecca nodded. Derek and Anderson have been meeting for almost a year. Planning. They wanted you to take that loan, Daniel. It was part of the plan. My blood ran cold. What? Anderson offered the loan on purpose, knowing you'd be desperate. The terms were designed to compromise you, to make you look unethical. And then Derek could come back and use it against you. Why would Anderson do that? Because he wants Mitchell and Sons. He always has. But your father would never sell to him. So he and Derek made a deal. Derek helps him take over the company, and in return, Derek gets an executive position and a huge payout. That's conspiracy. That's exactly what it is. And there's more. Anderson funded the private investigator who dug into your life. Anderson is the one who found out about Jennifer Dalton, about Tom Briggs. Everything was orchestrated to give Derek ammunition against you. Why are you telling me this? Rebecca looked away. Because I worked for Derek for 6 months and thought I was helping someone who'd been wronged. But the more I learned, the more I realized he's just a vindictive manipulator willing to destroy his own family for money. I can't be part of that. You have proof? Of Derek and Anderson working together? Emails, audio recordings, financial documents showing Anderson paying Derek's bills. Everything. She handed me a flash drive. It's all here. But Daniel, you need to know, they're moving fast. Anderson already has a buyout offer prepared. As soon as Derek forces you out and your father is confused and upset enough, they're going to present it. And your mother, who's always favored Derek, will push your father to accept. My dad would never sell to Anderson. Not normally. But if Derek convinces him you're unethical, that you can't be trusted, that the company needs new leadership? And if your mother is on Derek's side, begging him to give her youngest son a chance? Your father might cave. Especially with his health fragile. Let him come. I have copies of everything in safe places. And Daniel? I'm not the only person Derek screwed over. There are others in Denver, people he conned, clients he lied to. He left a trail of victims everywhere he went. Someone had to stop him. My phone rang. Dad. Daniel, where are you? In the park. Why? Because Derek just showed up in my office with a lawyer and Robert Anderson. They're demanding an emergency board meeting. Now. And Daniel, they have documents. Buyout offer, transition agreement, everything. You need to get back here. Now. I hung up and looked at Rebecca. They're moving. Then use what I gave you. Expose them before they expose you. I ran to my car, my mind racing. Derek and Anderson had set everything up. The loan, the investigation, even the timing of Derek coming back now. But I had proof of their conspiracy. The question was, would it be enough? I reached Dad's office in 20 minutes, breaking every speed limit on the way. His office sat on the ground floor of the factory, a modest room he refused to modernize because your grandfather built these walls with his own hands. Now, those walls were witnessing an attempted theft of the company my grandfather founded. Derek was sitting in the conference room beside Dad, looking perfectly comfortable in an expensive suit. Robert Anderson was on his right, older in person than in photos, but with the same calculating eyes. A lawyer I didn't recognize was spreading documents across the table. And my mother was in the corner, her eyes red from crying, clutching a tissue tightly. "Daniel," Dad said when I walked in, his face gray and worn. "Sit. Mr. Anderson and Derek have a proposal they think we should hear." "I'm sure they do," I replied, staying on my feet. I squeezed the flash drive in my pocket like a talisman. Anderson stood and extended his hand. I didn't shake it. He lowered it without looking offended, that cold businessman's smile still fixed on his face. "Mr. Mitchell, it's good to finally meet under more formal circumstances. We've met. When you loaned me money you knew I desperately needed. A loan you repaid under the agreed terms. That should be seen as a successful business transaction. If that's all it had been, yes. But it wasn't, was it?" Anderson exchanged a quick look with Derek. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "Of course you're not." I turned to Dad. "Before we listen to their proposal, I need to show you something." I pulled my laptop from my bag and plugged in the flash drive. "Patricia, could you come in please?" Patricia entered, carrying the projector we quickly set up. Derek was growing restless, his eyes darting between me and Anderson. "Daniel, what are you doing?" Mom asked nervously. "Showing everyone exactly what's been happening. Because Derek and Mr. Anderson here have been very busy these past few months. Making plans. Conspiring." "This is ridiculous," Derek snapped, though there was a note of panic in his voice. "Is it? So you don't know Rebecca Torres?" Derek's face drained of color. "Who?" "Your executive assistant in Denver. Who worked for you for 6 months while you planned all this." I clicked open the first file. An email appeared on the projected wall. From Derek to Anderson, dated 8 months earlier. The loan worked perfectly. Daniel took the bait. Now he's compromised. Give me 6 more months to compile evidence of all his other questionable decisions. Then I'll come back, expose him, and you can make your move. As discussed, you buy the company at a reduced price, and I get a VP position with $300,000 compensation plus 5% equity. Dad shot to his feet, his face reddening. "What the hell is this?" "Daniel is forging emails." Derek shouted, standing as well. "This is insane." "The metadata proves they're real," Patricia said calmly. "Our IT consultant already verified them. These emails came from Derek's servers in Denver." I clicked to the next one. Another email, this time from Anderson to Derek. I agree on the timeline. My investigator found interesting information about Jennifer Dalton. Seems your brother used an old flame to secure the quantum contract. Combined with the loan and the payment to Briggs, we have enough ammunition. Your father will see Daniel isn't the saint he thinks. That is completely out of context, Anderson began. Context? My voice rose. What context makes it okay that you two spent nearly a year conspiring to destroy my reputation and steal my family's company? I clicked through more files. Audio recordings of Derek and Anderson discussing strategy. Financial records showing Anderson paying Derek's bills and funding his lifestyle in Denver. Documents proving Anderson hired the private investigator who dug up every detail of my life. Mom was openly sobbing now, but for the first time in years, it wasn't in Derek's defense. It was betrayal. "Derek," she whispered, "you planned all of this?" "Mom, just let me explain." "Explain?" Dad roared, slamming his hand on the table. "Explain how you conspired with our biggest competitor to steal the company your grandfather built. How you manipulated your own brother into making choices you could use against him." "I didn't manipulate anything. Daniel made those choices himself. Choices I made because you stole our money." I fired back. "Choices I never would have had to make if you hadn't put me in an impossible position." Gentlemen, Anderson's lawyer interjected, we should keep this civil. Shut your mouth, Dad said, his voice like ice. You come into my company, represent these snakes, and tell me to calm down? Get out. Now. The lawyer looked to Anderson, who gave a small nod. He gathered his papers and left, leaving only family and Anderson behind. Mr. Mitchell, Anderson said, his composure finally cracking, this is simply business. Your son approached me with a proposal. I saw an opportunity. My son is a con artist, Dad cut in, glaring at Derek with something close to disgust. And you took advantage of that. But that doesn't make you any different from him. You're the same. Willing to destroy a family for profit. Dad, you don't understand, Derek tried again, tears forming now. I was trying to save the company from Daniel. He was making bad decisions, questionable deals. You even said you were disappointed in him. I was disappointed that he felt he had to lie to me, Dad said. But Daniel made those choices trying to save something. You made your choices trying to destroy. There's a difference. So you're taking his side? After everything he did? I'm taking the side of the truth. And the truth is that your brother, despite his mistakes, never stopped fighting for this company. While you were busy planning how to steal it. Mom stepped toward Derek, reaching out to his face. For a moment I thought she might comfort him. Instead, she slapped him. Hard enough to turn his head. How dare you, she said, her voice trembling. How dare you make me defend you, make me accuse Daniel, make me believe you were the victim. I defended you for years, Derek. Years. While Daniel worked 60 hours a week, while he sacrificed everything, I told everyone who would listen that you were misunderstood, that you needed time, that your father was too harsh. And all along, you were exactly what he feared. A liar. A thief. Mom, Derek touched his cheek, tears now spilling. No. No more, Mom. No more excuses. You broke this family, Derek. Not Daniel. You. Anderson stood, sensing his scheme collapsing. If you'll excuse me, I have other appointments. You're not going anywhere, Dad said. I'm calling our attorney. I'll sue you and Derek for conspiracy, fraud, attempted misappropriation. I'll make sure everyone in the valley knows exactly what kind of businessman you are. Mr. Mitchell, you don't want to do that. Lawsuits are costly, time-consuming. And public. Yes, I know. And I don't care. Because you know what else is public? A prominent businessman being exposed for conspiring to destroy a family-owned company. Good luck raising funding or keeping clients once that story hits the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Anderson's confidence evaporated. We can reach an agreement. Financial, anything you need. I want you off my property. Now. And Derek, you're going with him. Dad, please, Derek sobbed. I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake. But I'm your son. You can't cut me out completely. You still own 30% of this company, Dad said, his voice exhausted. Legally, I can't take that away without your mother and Daniel agreeing. But Derek, you will never step foot in this building again. You'll receive your profit dividends like any silent investor, and that's it. You're dead to this company. And to me, Mom added, her voice breaking. I can't even look at you right now. Not after this. Derek looked around the room, searching for an ally, a way out. His eyes landed on mine. For a brief second, I saw something there. Maybe real remorse. Or maybe just self-pity for being caught. Danny, he said, using the childhood nickname he hadn't used in years. I never meant to hurt you. I swear. I just wanted to prove I was as good as you. That I mattered. You mattered, I said, my anger dissolving into something closer to sorrow. You always mattered. But you were so desperate to prove something that you destroyed the only thing that actually mattered. Family. Derek followed Anderson out, shoulders slumped, all his bravado gone. The door closed behind them, and the silence that followed was absolute. Dad sank into his chair, looking decades older. Mom went to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. They stayed like that for a long moment, a couple who had just lost their son for the second time. Daniel, Dad finally said, "Sit." I sat. Exhaustion hit me all at once. I had won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. The decisions you made, Dad began, the loan from Anderson, the payment to Briggs, even the lunches with Jennifer Dalton. They were mistakes. You know that. I know. But they were mistakes made trying to save something, not destroy it. And that matters. It doesn't excuse them, but it matters. I should have been honest with you from the start. Yes. You should have. He paused. But I should have made you feel like you could. Like no matter how bad things got, we were in it together. Instead, I put so much weight on your shoulders you felt you had to carry it alone. Dad. Let me finish. I failed you, Daniel. And I failed Derek. With you, I didn't give you enough credit for the burden you were carrying. With Derek, I gave too much credit for too little effort. And now this family is shattered. Mom was crying softly, her head resting on Dad's shoulder. We failed as parents, she whispered. With both our boys. No, I said. Derek made his own choices. I made mine. You're not responsible for that. But we are, Dad insisted. Parents shape their children. The way we treated you both, the expectations, the favoritism, it all mattered. And look what we created. One son who felt he had to lie to protect us, and another who felt he had to destroy to prove his worth. A soft knock came at the door. Daniel? Patricia said. Sorry to interrupt, but someone is here to see you. Who? Sarah. My heart clenched. I had forgotten about Sarah entirely in the chaos of the morning. I stepped into the reception area and found her there, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes red from crying. Your secretary called me, she said. Told me what was happening. About Derek and Anderson, about the conspiracy. Daniel, why didn't you tell me? I found out this morning. Everything happened so fast. Not today. I mean 3 years ago. About the choices you made. About the loan, about Tom Briggs. Why didn't you trust me with that? Because I was ashamed. Because I knew if I told you, I'd have to admit I wasn't the man you thought I was. And who exactly did you think I thought you were? Some perfect hero? Daniel, I'm a nurse. I see people at their worst every day. I see people making impossible choices under impossible circumstances. You think I wouldn't understand? You said last night you weren't sure you even knew me. Because you don't let me know you. You keep everything locked up, carry everything alone, and then act surprised when I feel shut out? She was right. I knew she was. I had spent so long trying to be the strong son, the responsible brother, the reliable leader, that I had forgotten how to just be human, human enough to admit mistakes, ask for help, be vulnerable. I'm sorry, I said. For every secret, every lie by omission. You deserve better. I deserve honesty. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Can I promise you that now? Total honesty, no more secrets. Sarah studied my face for a long moment. We can work on that. But Daniel, you need therapy. Real therapy, with a professional. Because the way you handle stress and pressure, it's not healthy. And if we're going to get married, if we're going to build a life together, I need to know you won't fall apart in the next crisis. I will. I'll go. I'll do the work. She nodded, then pulled me into a hug. I love you. Even when you drive me crazy. Even when you make stupid decisions. But I need you to love me enough to let me in. Okay? Okay. My phone rang. Our lawyer, James Palmer. Daniel, your father called me. I'm on my way to the office. But first, I need to warn you. Derek just filed a legal action contesting his ownership share in the company. He's claiming he was forced into unfair terms, that he was misled, and that he deserves a larger portion. He can do that? Even with all the evidence against him? He can try. He'll probably lose, but he can delay things. And Daniel, he hired Bernard Shaw to represent him. My stomach dropped. Bernard Shaw was known as the most ruthless attorney in Indiana. Expensive, brutal, and with a 90% win rate. How long until we're in court? Months, at least. Maybe a year. During which Derek will do everything in his power to freeze the company, destroy your reputation, and make your life hell. I looked at Sarah, then through the window at the factory floor. Workers assembling furniture, machines humming, the steady rhythm of the business 3 generations of my family had built. Derek wasn't going to take this away. Anderson wasn't going to take this away. No matter how long it took, how costly it became, I would fight. Then we fight, I told James. We gather every piece of evidence, build an airtight case, and bury Derek in court. It'll be expensive. I don't care. This company is worth it. I hung up and walked back into Dad's office. He and Mom were still there, holding each other. They looked up when I entered. Derek is suing us, I said. He's contesting his ownership share, claiming he was misled. Mom broke into a sob. When will this end? When one of us gives up, I said. And it won't be me. 8 months. It took 8 months for the case to reach court. 8 months of depositions, interrogations, mountains of legal paperwork. 8 months during which Derek did everything in his power to make our lives miserable. He leaked stories to the press about my questionable business practices. He contacted our clients, hinting at instability. He even tried to recruit employees, offering inflated salaries to lure them away from Mitchell and Sons. But it didn't work. Because this time, we had something Derek had never managed to build, genuine loyalty. Our clients knew our work, our integrity. Our employees knew who had stayed when things got hard. And my family, for the first time in years, was united. I sat in the courtroom on a cold December morning, Sarah beside me, Dad and Mom behind us. Across the aisle, Derek sat with Bernard Shaw, the predatory attorney who'd made a career out of tearing apart family businesses. Derek had lost weight over the last few months, his face tense and tired. The Porsche was gone. The expensive suit replaced by something modest. Anderson had cut his funding the moment the conspiracy was exposed. Judge Martha Henderson entered, a 60-year-old woman known for being ruthless and fair. She didn't tolerate lies, had no patience for legal games, and had a sixth sense for manipulation. We are here, she began, for the case Mitchell versus Mitchell. Derek Mitchell is contesting the ownership terms of Mitchell and Sons, alleging coercion and unfair representation. Mr. Shaw, proceed with your opening arguments. Bernard Shaw stood, all charm and confidence. Your Honor, this case is about a young man who was systematically pushed aside from a company meant to be his legacy just as much as his brother's. Derek Mitchell went to Harvard, earned an MBA, and returned ready to contribute. But he found a business where every decision was made by his father and brother. Where his contributions were dismissed, and his ideas ignored. He walked the room, gesturing theatrically. Frustrated and hurt, my client made a mistake. He withdrew money that was technically his, but in a way that harmed the company. He admits that. But what happened next is where the real injustice began. His brother, Daniel, seized that moment of weakness to consolidate power, make decisions Derek never would have approved, and essentially force him out entirely. "Mr. Shaw," the judge interrupted, "I've read the filings. Your client took $470,000 and disappeared for 3 years. That goes beyond a mistake. With respect, Your Honor, my client was having an emotional collapse. The toxic family dynamics, the blatant favoritism toward his brother, the impossible pressure to meet unrealistic expectations. He broke under that weight. And instead of helping him, his family abandoned him." "That's a lie," Mom whispered behind me. Dad squeezed her hand gently. Our attorney, James Palmer, rose for our opening statement. He was Shaw's opposite, calm, methodical, focused on facts rather than theatrics. "Your Honor, the facts are simple. Derek Mitchell owned 30% of Mitchell and Sons. When he left the company 3 years ago, he withdrew a substantial amount of money, not just his share of profits, but the operational capital necessary for the business to survive. This nearly caused bankruptcy." He set a document on the table. During the following 3 years, Daniel Mitchell worked tirelessly to keep the company afloat. He made difficult choices, some ethically questionable. But every one of those choices was made out of necessity, not greed or malice. And crucially, none of those decisions altered ownership structure. Until Derek returned, James continued, not with remorse or a desire to make amends, but with a plan. A plan orchestrated with Robert Anderson, the family's competitor, to take over the business. We have extensive evidence of this conspiracy: emails, audio recordings, financial records. All proving Derek Mitchell is a victim only of his own poor choices. Judge Henderson leaned forward. "Mr. Palmer, this evidence, how was it obtained?" "Through Rebecca Torres, Derek Mitchell's former executive assistant. She came forward voluntarily after realizing the nature of the conspiracy." "And she is here to testify?" "Yes, Your Honor." In the days that followed, witness after witness took the stand. Patricia testified about years of records documenting Derek's absences, his lies about business trips, his falsified reports. Longtime clients testified how Daniel kept the company running when it should have collapsed. Our accountant detailed exactly how Derek's withdrawal had nearly destroyed us. Then Rebecca Torres took the stand. She was nervous, hands shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. "Mr. Mitchell hired me 15 months ago," she began. "I thought I was working for a legitimate consulting business. But I soon realized Derek's real focus wasn't consulting. It was revenge." Bernard Shaw tried to discredit her. "Ms. Torres, isn't it true you were fired by Mr. Mitchell for theft?" "No, sir. I resigned when I realized I was being made complicit in fraud." "Fraud is a strong word. Do you have any actual evidence of?" "Yes." Rebecca handed another flash drive to the court. "These are recordings of conversations between Derek Mitchell and Robert Anderson, discussing how to destroy Daniel Mitchell's reputation. How to manipulate their father into selling the company. How to use their mother as an emotional weapon. It's all here." The recordings played in the courtroom. Derek's voice, unmistakable, discussing strategy with Anderson. Planning timelines. Laughing about how easily they had manipulated the situation. I watched Dad close his eyes as he heard his youngest son talk about him like a pawn. I watched Mom wipe silent tears. And I watched Derek sink deeper into his chair, realizing every lie and manipulation was being exposed. On the 5th day, it was my turn to testify. Shaw went after me hard, as expected. "Mr. Mitchell, isn't it true you borrowed money from Robert Anderson, the same man you now claim was conspiring with your brother?" "It's true. I was desperate after Derek took our money. Anderson offered a loan when no one else would. And the terms of that loan included you agreeing not to compete in certain areas?" "Yes. So you essentially betrayed your father's principle of never doing business with Anderson? I made an impossible choice in impossible circumstances. And Tom Briggs? The procurement manager at Prestige Hotels? You gave him $45,000 2 weeks before he awarded you $1 million contract? I lent money to a man whose daughter needed emergency surgery. Yes. What a convenient coincidence. Not all kindness is calculated, Mr. Shaw. Sometimes people help because it's the right thing to do. And Jennifer Dalton? You used her unresolved feelings for you to get access to her husband? Jennifer and I are friends. She introduced me to Martin because she believed in our product. There was nothing inappropriate. But you never told your fiancé about those lunches, did you? No. And that was wrong. But it wasn't infidelity. It was poor communication. Shaw smirked, thinking he'd won something. Mr. Mitchell, it seems you have many communication issues, with your fiancé, your father, your business partners. Maybe the real problem here isn't your brother, but you. The real problem, I said, steady, is that when faced with a crisis Derek created, I made imperfect choices to save something. Derek created a crisis to destroy something. There's a difference. But both of you lied. Yes. Both of us lied. But I lied to protect. Derek lied to harm. And if you can't see the difference, then you don't understand anything about family or morality. Shaw sat, annoyed. Dad took the stand next. Shaw treated him more gently out of respect for his age and health. Mr. Mitchell, did you favor Daniel over Derek for years? Yes, Dad admitted. I did. Because Daniel showed up. He did the work. He learned the craft. Derek was, elsewhere, doing other things. And was that Derek's choice? Or was he pushed aside because there was no room for him? Dad considered. Derek always had room. But he wanted that room on his terms. He wanted the title, the salary, the respect, without putting in the years of work that come first. My father taught me this business starting on the factory floor. I taught Daniel the same way. Derek didn't want to learn that way. He wanted to start at the top. And wasn't that his right as family? Family doesn't give you rights. Family gives you opportunities. But you still have to earn your place. Shaw shifted. Mr. Mitchell, did you love Derek less than Daniel? The question hung in the air. Dad looked at Derek, really looked at him, for the first time in days. No, Dad said softly, voice cracking. I loved Derek the same. But love isn't enough. You also need respect. And Derek, you made choices that made it impossible to respect you. But you still love me? Derek asked, forgetting he shouldn't speak. I will always love you. You're my son. But Derek, love and trust are different things. And you shattered the trust. I don't know if that can be repaired. On the final day, Derek took the stand. Shaw tried to paint him as a victim, but his answers were thin, rehearsed. Even the judge looked skeptical. Then James questioned him. Mr. Mitchell, why did you really come back? Because I missed my family. But you didn't contact your family for 3 years. No calls, no emails, nothing. I was processing. Or you were broke? Isn't it true every startup you invested in failed? That you burned through nearly all $470,000? Derek didn't answer. And when you decided to return, your first call wasn't to your parents. It was to Robert Anderson. Why? I needed advice. Advice? Or a partner in fraud? James placed the emails in front of him. Explain these emails, Mr. Mitchell. Explain how plotting to destroy your brother is missing your family. Derek stared at the emails, then at the room. His eyes landed on Mom, who looked at him with nothing but heartbreak. Not anger, just deep, exhausted sadness. I was angry, Derek finally said. So angry. And Anderson offered me a way to get back what I thought I'd lost. But he was right. Derek looked at me. I wasn't trying to get something back. I was trying to hurt someone. And I hurt everyone. Especially the people I love. It was the first honest thing I'd heard Derek say in months. Maybe years. Judge Henderson took 2 days to deliberate. When we returned, the courtroom was silent. I have reviewed the evidence extensively, she began. And I must say, rarely have I seen a case where the lines between right and wrong are so simultaneously blurred and clear. She turned to Derek. Mr. Mitchell, were you treated unfairly? Possibly. Your brother received more attention, more opportunities, more trust. That created resentment, and that resentment is understandable. But resentment does not justify what you did. You didn't just take money and leave. You conspired with a competitor to destroy your family. Not out of justice, but out of revenge. Then she looked at me. Mr. Daniel Mitchell, you made questionable decisions. The loan from Anderson, the payment to Briggs, the use of personal relationships for business advantage. These are not the actions of someone without fault. But I am convinced they were the actions of someone desperate to save something he loved. Therefore, she said, my ruling is as follows: Derek Mitchell will retain his 30% ownership of Mitchell & Sons. That is his legal right and will not be removed. However, he is barred from any operational role in the company indefinitely. He will be treated as any silent investor, receiving profits but having no decision-making power. Derek closed his eyes, accepting defeat. Additionally, the judge continued, Derek Mitchell will pay all legal fees for this action. And a notice will be sent to the Indiana Bar Association regarding his actions, which may affect future employment. As for you, Mr. Daniel Mitchell, I hope this experience taught you the importance of transparency. Even well-intentioned secrets have consequences. Yes, Your Honor, I said. Case dismissed. Outside the courthouse, our family gathered in the parking lot. Derek stood alone by a used Toyota, his Porsche long gone. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Mom walked toward him. Derek, she said, voice steady, you will always have a place in this family. But you have to earn it back. Not with words, with actions. Years of them. I know, Derek said quietly. And Mom? Dad? Daniel? I'm sorry. Truly. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. Dad nodded but said nothing. Some wounds were too deep for words. I walked toward Derek and extended my hand. He stared at it, surprised. You're still my brother, I said. And maybe someday we can rebuild from this. But for now, this is all I can offer. He shook my hand, tears on his face. It's more than I deserve. He climbed into his car and drove away. I didn't know if I'd see him again, if our family would ever fully heal. But for the first time in years, it felt like maybe, we could try. 3 months later, I sat in Dad's office, now officially mine as well. He was finally retiring after 45 years at Mitchell & Sons. His health was better, but his doctor had been clear: less stress, more rest, time to enjoy life. You going to be okay? He asked, looking around the office he'd occupied since 1980. I will. We have a strong team. Patricia keeps me organized. And Sarah keeps me human. She's good for you. Don't let her go. I won't. Sarah and I had postponed the wedding because of the trial, but now it was set for June. Therapy had helped us both, me learning to communicate, her learning to trust again. And Derek? Dad asked. Have you heard from him? An email 2 weeks ago. He got a job at a furniture company in Michigan. Entry level, factory floor. Says he's learning the business the right way this time. You think it's genuine? I don't know. But I hope so. Dad stood and extended his hand. This company is in good hands. Your grandfather would be proud. We shook hands, then he pulled me into a hug. I'm proud too. I always have been, even when I didn't show it well. I know, Dad. After he left, I sat alone in the office. 3 generations of Mitchells had worked in this room. Grandpa, who started with nothing and built a legacy. Dad, who grew that legacy. And now me, who almost lost it, and had to fight like hell to save it. My phone buzzed. A message from Derek. Saw Forbes covered Mitchell and Sons. You're growing 60% this year. I'm proud of you, man. Maybe I don't have the right to say that, but it's true. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then typed back. Thank you. And Derek? The door isn't closed. It's just locked. But maybe someday, you'll earn the key back. His reply came quickly. I'll work on that. Every day. I looked out at the factory floor. At the workers who stayed through everything. Patricia, who never gave up. The clients who trusted us when they had every reason not to. And Sarah, who saw me at my worst and stayed anyway. Derek had almost destroyed all of it. But in the process, he revealed something important. A family business isn't strong because it avoids conflict. It's strong because of how it survives conflict. With honesty, not deceit. With love, not revenge. I had chosen honesty, finally. And though it cost me dearly, though it nearly shattered relationships I cherished, it was the right choice. Because in the end, family isn't about never failing. It's about owning your failures, learning from them, and trying to do better. Derek still had to learn that. But maybe, with time and effort, he would. And maybe, just maybe, we could learn to be brothers again. Not as we were before, that was broken beyond repair, but as something new. Something honest. Something built on truth instead of expectation. But for now, I had a company to run. A legacy to honor. And a life to live, finally free from the secrets that nearly destroyed me. It was enough.
And if you enjoyed this story and want to see more narratives like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Leave a like if the story kept you hooked until the end, and share it with someone who also loves stories about family, relationships, revenge, business, and resilience. I'll see you in the next video with another incredible story. See you then.